It's okay to not be overly opinionated on things.
No, I think I'm overly opinionated. I don't know.
Hey everybody, welcome to Without a Roadmap. This is a show for product people who don't have all the answers. We'll tell the stories of the product folks who get the job done but are still figuring things out. My name is Yonas.
I'm Cameron. We're both product managers here at Parlor, which is a startup located in downtown Boston. Today we have Eliana here, who's a second-year student at Northeastern, also a product management intern at Lola.com, which is another startup here in Boston.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Woo! So the goal of our show was to always share stories and perspectives of other people in product management, or we're still figuring it out. And finally, we had the chance to do so. So we have Eliana here to share her story. So why don't you get us started about how you got the co-op at Lola, and just kind of what's the most surprising thing you learned in being a product manager so far?
Yeah, definitely. Great question. So I got the product co-op at Lola in a very unconventional way. So I was vice president of the Entrepreneurs Club in my first year on campus. Incredible organization. I think that's how I learned so much about what entrepreneurship really was. I think coming into Northeastern, I didn't know any of that. I thought I was going to be studying neuroscience, so I wasn't really interested in business. And I think, a year ago, I wouldn't have even been able to answer the question, what is product management? So I'm really, really lucky that I've had the opportunities that I've had so far. But I actually got introduced to the founder of Lola, Paul English, who was the founder of Kayak originally, because he came to speak at the Entrepreneurs Club at our Tuesday speaker series. So I met him actually about a year ago. He came in to speak, led an awesome fireside chat, and I had the ability to connect with him afterwards. So it definitely shows the power of student organizations on campus and being super involved. And I kept in touch with him and the Lola team over the summer as they were structuring their product team. And then I was lucky enough to be able to intern there starting in September. So I was working part-time in a product role that was super tricky, but I think it definitely gave me the leeway to learn a lot about the product, understand the customer, get acquainted to what it really means to be a product manager. So yeah, it's been incredible so far.
And you said you're doing that through a co-op. Can you kind of explain what the whole co-op thing is?
Yeah. So for those of you who don't go to Northeastern or don't know what co-ops are, basically we work full-time for 6 months. So I actually started out in an internship and then was able to continue that into a co-op, which means that my experience is going to be longer than 6 months, which I think is really worth it. But yeah, we do at least 2 to 3 co-ops while we're at Northeastern.
That's such a great opportunity.
Yeah.
And we've been seeing just the different events we've been going to and people we've been meeting. A lot of them have been Northeastern students. It's really impressive.
Yeah, you guys are everywhere, so.
Shout out to Northeastern entrepreneurs.
Experiential learning.
Yeah. So you mentioned a little bit about the mentorship that you received. I'm kind of curious, how you landed that position. Obviously, you were part of a group, but something that we've been hearing a lot from people lately is they're curious how I found a mentor in product, and as well as Cam and Keith, the CEO here. But something that we also notice is that mentors are rarely just altruistic. They're oftentimes looking for an opportunity to also extract something from you because they see value in you. So I'm curious why you feel they took an opportunity on you being so young and early in your career, and how are you providing them with value?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's really tough. It's tricky to break into product, and I'm so lucky that I was able to get my feet wet at such a young age. I think, Lola did take a huge chance on me. It's really tough to be able to train somebody from the ground up who's never really held a product role. I think a really, really big part in that was Rachel Nisham, our VP of product. She's been incredible and mentoring me all the way through. So of all the other product managers at Lola, and Paul as well, he's really involved in actually building Lola's product, in the weeds a lot of the time. And I'm really, really lucky that I've been able to learn from him as well. And I think also a lot of people throughout the Boston product community, I have friends that have, co-ops at other places within Boston, or our current product managers that I've definitely leaned on a lot for support. And I've asked them how have you handled certain situations? How have you navigated the space? So I'm, constantly grabbing coffee with people. I have a goal to grab coffee with somebody new once a week. So it's been even more than that recently, which is really nice. Wow. 8 a.m. coffees before work. I've not been a morning person up until, as of late. But I think that's been really, really great because I'm able to learn about how people lead product teams at all companies, not just in B2B SaaS. So that's been really, really interesting. So a lot of people have been kind of mentoring me throughout my product career so far.
So you like gain like kind of most of the knowledge about product through like actually doing the product work at Lola and also just speaking with other product people?
Yeah, that's how I've done it. Also, like, taken a lot of initiative to just read all the time, like trying to read articles, but a lot of it just been kind of throwing myself into it. Like I came in to that role, like really barely even knowing what product management was. Like I read, a few books over the summer, but that was about it. But I think honestly, the thing that's been most helpful even so far is not even those like hard or technical skills about the actual job, but it's a lot of those soft skills that I think were so important. I like learning how to communicate really well, and I thought that I was a strong communicator, and then I came to product management and I was like, whoa, I don't know the first thing about like communicating with people, because it's definitely an art. A lot of like leadership skills that I've learned throughout like leading eClub, and then co-founding WISE on campus, the Women's Interdisciplinary Society of Entrepreneurship. I think that's been huge, and like setting up programs from the ground up, kind of like leading a team when you don't really know exactly what the long-term vision is, but like figuring out long-term strategy and like being execute on those like small steps kind of day to day. I think all of those skills were like really pertinent in when going into product management. And then a lot of other things that like Rachel's always talking about, like, leading without authority and, getting people to believe in you and trust you. Like all of those are soft skills that I was kind of putting into practice throughout like leadership roles on campus and throughout other things that I've done and other projects I've worked on. But I think definitely I worked on a lot throughout Lola. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's well, can you talk a little bit more about like leading without authority? I think that's a really interesting thing that you bring up, and I think it condenses a lot of what product managers have to do really well in a few words.
Yeah, leading without authority is interesting. I think there's always like a misconception that the like product manager is like the CEO of the product, and they have like total jurisdiction over what happens and they're making all the decisions. But I think that obviously like buy-in from other people in the company is like the most important thing when figuring out what it is that you're building. Of course, other than like customer input, but in terms of like leading without authority, that's been a really interesting thing to learn about when you don't really have a lot of the power, but you need to get people, to believe in you and standing behind you. And I think that proved to be especially challenging, like coming into product for the first time. So I also never worked in the travel industry before. So there's trying to figure out like, what is this industry all about? Like, what do our customers need? And I'm not the target customer. So a lot of research had to go into that. And also figuring out like all the technical, components and like how you can actually build the thing. So you definitely need to know what you're doing, but then it's also like building relationships with people one-on-one and getting them to trust you kind of throughout the process. So that's something I'm still trying to navigate, reading a lot about, talking to people about, but yeah.
We all are.
Yeah.
That's very interesting too, because like all three of us are early in our career, and RPM. So like having the leading without authority thing is super interesting to me, because you have to like get that buy-in, and like sometimes the people you're trying to get buy-in from are older or more experienced than you.
Oh yeah.
So they're looking at you like, who's this person like trying to tell me like we need to build this?
Exactly.
They have their own opinions on how the direction's supposed to go of the product. So that's super interesting to hear.
Yeah, and I think it's something that I was really tough for me to navigate in the beginning, and even still, because I think I struggled with raising my like opinion or bring up what I actually thought, and I thought I was like, oh, I need to please everybody and I need to get everybody's opinions into the actual spec and like make sure that I'm accounting for what everybody's thinking. But I think that's what I've been challenging myself to do, is that's not what being a product manager is all about. And of course it's so important to have strong relationships with all your stakeholders and everyone else, but at the end of the day, like, you're the product manager, like, you need to drive things forward. So it's been a lot of like navigating that imposter syndrome, especially in the beginning, and like being able to feel like confident in leading my meetings and like moving everything forward, especially because a lot of the initiatives I'm working on at Lola tend to be pretty big and span the whole product. So I'm not even working like directly with my team, but with a lot of the other teams and a lot of stakeholders that can, definitely get involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we talked about like finding your voice as a PM a couple episodes ago, and it's very like along the lines of what you're saying there. It's, everybody has a voice, obviously, and if you're in the role, then the company feels that you're capable of doing the necessary requirements. But at the same time, like, not everybody's voice needs to be heard in every moment, and but you also have to prepare yourself so that you are kind of ready to jump in at any point whenever possible and actually provide value. So a lot of that background work and developing those relationships is so key, so that when you come to the conversation, you're actually being heard.
Yeah. Exactly. A lot of that research needs to be done beforehand. Like I feel like, you always need to know what's going on and be like a few steps ahead of everybody else when it comes to like being able to, know what's next and what, what's coming up. So that's, I'm really glad you brought that up.
One thing I did want to get to, so our first episode was about taking initiative, and it's kind of centered around how we both got to Parlor. Myself reaching out in LinkedIn, sliding in Keith's LinkedIn DMs, and then Yonas here actually taking initiative to meet with Keith after an event. So it's kind of similar that you guys both like took the initiative to meet the person after an event. So tell me how like you took the initiative to kind of meet the founder of Lola.
Yeah, so actually like Paul arrived early to the event. So I was my job like as vice president, I ran to the door and greeted him. So we were able to talk for like 20 minutes beforehand. Got to know, who he was and like what he was doing. And I remember feeling definitely like pretty starstruck. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, who am I talking to right now? Because it was like my first year at Northeastern. Like I didn't know the Boston ecosystem at all. So I'm really glad that I like took the initiative to follow up with him and kind of keep in contact, especially because at the time they actually weren't hiring. So I had to, stay in contact with the team pretty closely. I mean, like, hey, like any chance there's a possibility here. And I was also really ambitious with asking for like a product role. I was like, I wanted to try product. And I had, I have some experience in design. So I thought maybe that, maybe marketing, but I was like, product is where I wanted to be. So I'm like, might as well.
Yeah, shoot the shot.
Might as well shoot your shot. Be ambitious, and it really did work out. And I had, of course, no idea what I was doing at all. Like every day I had like a list of like 30 questions, and I'm like, but like, can I reach out to this person? Like, wait, I'm allowed to talk to the customer like on my own? Like I can ask them these questions. Right. So it's like a lot of learning that came out of it, but I think I grew like exponentially because, you go outside of your comfort zone, and I think that's where you truly grow. So
what's the biggest surprise so far about being a product manager?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think the biggest surprise was like how important those soft skills were. I was most concerned, I don't have a technical background, and something that I hear a lot is like, how are you in product management without a CS degree? And of course that's tricky. I tried to capitalize on the fact that I had a design background, so trying to go in with that perspective, and I've done like other operationally focused things before. But I think what surprised me the most was not even how difficult it was to understand like the technological feasibility behind everything, which is what I was most nervous about, but it was really in like those soft skills and like how good are you at building relationships, how good are you at getting your point across, being able to kind of synthesize information, make decisions quickly, move even in times where you feel really uncertain, like how to take calculated risks and bets and all those things. So I think that was what surprised me the most, like all those soft skills needed that go into the actual role.
I'm sure there's a lot of people looking to get into product management, hearing what you're saying and feeling put at ease, because that's something that I hear really commonly across like early stage PMs who like thought that they had to have some crazy technical like skill set, and that's generally not the case. Like I think that sometimes in some cases it's actually a downside, because you're kind of coming in with these preconceived ideas of how things should be done, and when in reality that should probably be left to the people who are best at that, and that's the engineering team. And
right.
With if you have a design background, it's useful, but if you feel like your input is like worth more than the designers, then that can cause issues. So
exactly.
I think it's being well-rounded, but at the end of the day, the product people do the product work, and designers will design, and engineers will develop.
Yeah. It's funny. During my time at BU, I actually took 2 courses like related to like SQL and Python, and I don't use any of that knowledge. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Like the courses were fun, especially the Python one. I built like my own like Reddit website, which is pretty cool. But then like now I couldn't do that at all.
Yeah, and I also found that everyone's incredibly helpful and like willing to like explain things to you. Like there was so many situations where I'm like, I have no idea how this works, and like the engineers will sit down with me and like kind of talk me through it, and I'm constantly asking questions. So I think as long as you're open to actually like going and getting that information on your own, and not just being like, oh, I don't know how to do it, so that's it. Like your role is to just get rid of blockers constantly. So if you're facing blockers, like you have to figure out a way around it. And I think that made me super uncomfortable at first, but when you get the hang of things, like people are so kind and always willing like to sit down with you and explain something, like what you can and can't do, like how this works. So I definitely relied a lot on the people that are around me to kind of get me through some of the situations that I don't know quite as well. And also just being open to asking like, how can I help you? Like, how can I support you? Is there anything that you need? And being really proactive, because I find that sometimes people won't really tell you, but if you are always like open to that, it helps with that. Like, if you're asking for help, also offering support back.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned like moving blockers. It's like a job as a PM. Yesterday we were just talking, like us two and Keith. We were basically saying like a product manager's job is organizing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just all being like organizational stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And like handling all the follow-ups, like immediately making sure that everybody's on the same page, you know, a lot of like back and forth, figuring out how like teams can work better together. Yeah. I find all that really, really interesting.
For sure. So like you're super involved in community in Boston and at Northeastern. So what would you say is like the main benefit of being involved on campus? Because myself, and I think Yonas too, we weren't that involved on campus. Like I only just played basketball, so that was about it. But yeah, just love to hear your thoughts about that.
I think that's a great question. I'm so glad that I've gotten so involved on campus. It's, you know, it's how I built my entire community around me. Like, I think definitely the best part is like the people that you meet, you know, meeting other incredibly passionate people that are willing to help you, always kind of like propel you forward, and people you can kind of lean on all the time. I think also that's taught me a lot of skills that I didn't even think were going to be helpful. But I'm like, oh, like I've done that. Like Wise now is like close to like 25 people. So being able to, thank you. Like being able to, you know, work with a team of 25, and like I've learned so many things about communicating and making sure that you're like not overstepping and you're empowering others, and like you're not actually doing any of the operational work, but you're kind of propelling others, and like the team's success is your success. So I think all of that has like really like been super helpful like in product, but also in general, like it's built your network. Like I've gotten to meet people like Paul and like the team at Lola, and so many people throughout the Boston community, literally because if you reach out and you're a student, like people are willing to grab coffee with you, you know, they're willing to come and speak at a university, lead a workshop, like all these different things. So almost like everybody that I've met in Boston has been through either the Entrepreneurs Club or Wise so far, because everyone's just, you know, looking to give back and looking to get involved and mentor. So that and the ability to just, you know, learn about what else is out there and not be like constrained to the confines of a campus, but know that, you know, we're in Boston, might as well take advantage of like all the resources that you have here and consistently kind of put yourself out there and continue to get involved.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, perhaps a little bit of a hot take, but, you know, in my experience, the work that I did in my actual coursework has done very little outside of maybe, you know, maybe like preparing me to like write academic research papers, which, you know, it helps to be a good writer. But outside of that, it doesn't seem like there's that much that's, you know, transferred from my time at, you know, in college. So I'm curious, it sounds like a lot of what you're doing is, you know, around these activities and the clubs that you're running on campus and your professional experience that you're gaining outside. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on like the potential impact of the coursework, because I know Northeastern probably has, you know, stronger entrepreneurship course load than, you know, Tufts at my school, where there was an ELS minor, entrepreneurial leadership studies minor, which I didn't do, so that's probably my fault. But you guys have a full major around entrepreneurship. I'm curious if you've seen that to be like, you know, provide a lot of useful, you know, knowledge that you've brought to product management.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a really nice like supplement to all the other things. I think Northeastern lays a really good foundation. I think the best part about Northeastern and why I decided to go there was because of their focus on experiential learning, and they push students like out of the classroom, which I think is the best part. Like I took a course last year that was, you know, focused on kind of bridging together like engineers, designers, and like business people. So I learned a lot about like developing a product really quickly, and we worked with engineers on it and actually had like a prototype to present at the end of the semester. So some pretty applied courses, and I've even had the opportunity to take summer courses in San Francisco last summer. So those are like really technical design courses taught by somebody at Adobe. So I was a Northeastern alum, which is amazing. So I learned a lot about like how to actually, you know, wireframe things out, and that's been super helpful in product so far. Like even just having the basic understanding of like design principles and like how things like should or shouldn't function. So a lot of like really, you know, applied courses, and, you know, that's why I'm taking, you know, business, psychology, design, and entrepreneurship courses. Yeah, very like interdisciplinary.
Is that like one degree, or is that like minors? Like
so yeah, great question. I'm studying, I should have started with this, I guess, but I'm studying business and psychology, which is a combined degree, and then a minor in UI UX design.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really well-rounded. Yeah.
Trying to be.
Yeah. Like no, that's awesome at Northeastern. That sounds super useful. You know, I'm curious, maybe, you know, I'm just speaking from my perspective, if other people think that their coursework is, potentially helped prepare them for their roles in product management and, maybe what the future of like education is in terms of how it can better prepare us for the real world. I know a lot of us with liberal arts backgrounds are finding that, there's a lot of work to be done after graduating to make sure that you find that fit if you don't have those technical skills. So, but that's probably a conversation for another episode.
Would you say that the course around like bringing like design engineer teams together, would you say the stuff you learned there was actually applicable to like you're talking about Lola, or was it a little bit different?
It's a little different.
I took a course of like around like agile waterfall methodology in college, and like we don't use any of that.
Yeah, no, I mean that was focused a lot more on like a hardware product, so I got to learn about like actually like physically hacking things together, which was super cool. But that wasn't exactly what, obviously like Lola's a software product. So no, I wouldn't say that kind of directly translated, but still,
it's a little different though.
A little different, but I'm happy I had that because now if I ever wanted to go work on like an actual like, direct to consumer product, that was like actually like a yeah, be on Shark Tank. Well, that's literally what our final presentation was like pitching to a bunch of investors. So yeah, even just that, like creating a pitch deck, being able to articulate things was helpful.
So going a little bit back to your activity on campus, but also like I know you're a venture partner at Contrary.
Yeah.
So like you're clearly like really well rounded in terms of like your entrepreneurial sense, which is awesome. But from being younger people, all of us, and having a lot of people reach out to us for mentorship and for like our own advice. Like I'm curious if you ever deal with like the issue of like giving out advice when we're at a place where we're still figuring things out, and I think that ties back into like why we're doing the show and trying to be open about that. But I find it super interesting, really, people who are really smart reaching out to me looking for my advice in product management for like their careers in general. Like has that been something you're dealing with, and if so, like how do you approach the like providing advice to people when you're still in the process of figuring it out?
Yeah. I love mentoring other people. Like I love meeting with new people for coffee and kind of figuring out how I can help them. There's definitely been like a lot of situations in which like, someone's working on like a food startup and I'm like, oh, I know absolutely nothing in this space, but it's, there's odds are that you will actually know somebody that like you can connect them to. So like, even if you don't have all the answers, there definitely are people that do and can kind of like help them get there. So, I also like to work on a lot of like the soft skills and like leadership component, like talking through like what they're struggling with, like what I may have gone through that was kind of similar, and like if there's anything that we can kind of work through together to be able to get them to where they need to be.
Cool. Yeah. All right. I think we can do one rapid fire question. It's supposed to be more, but let's just do, what's your favorite place to eat in Boston?
Favorite place to eat in Boston? That's a great question. I don't know. I went to Tiger Mama recently, which is like really fun. Random shout out to Tiger Mama. I also really love Terra in Italy. I think it's like super fun. Cool. Yeah, I try and go to a bunch of new places all the time.
Favorite artist? Maybe we can sneak one more question in here.
Okay, I just found out that I'm apparently in Lizzo's top 1%
there we go.
listeners, in case you're wondering, according to Spotify. So like
you listen to her that much?
Every day, every single day. So Spotify has like graciously let me know that I am in like the 1% of her worldwide listeners. So in case Lizzo hears this.
All right, well, thank you for joining the show, being our first guest. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course.
Yeah, really appreciate it. It was really great insights, and we look forward to watching the rest of your career blossom. You're up to great things. So yeah, like when you have a show next, I hope you can bring us on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for everyone who made it this far, please subscribe.